The sound of the judge's gavel echoed like a gunshot in the dead-silent courtroom. "Guilty," Judge Morrison declared, his voice devoid of all emotion. And that's when Adrian Vale smiled. It wasn't a smile of relief or of madness. It was a small, cold, calculated curl of his lips, a smirk of pure, undiluted victory. He had done it. He had looked into the eyes of justice, and he had won. I saw that smile, and a chill, colder than the steel handcuffs on his wrists, shot down my spine, because in that moment I knew, with a certainty that turned my blood to ice, that something was terribly, terribly wrong. The air in courtroom 4B was thick enough to choke on. It was a suffocating mix of old wood polish, stale coffee, and the sharp, metallic scent of fear. Every creak of a chair, every nervous cough was amplified in the tense silence. The entire world had shrunk to this single room. On one side sat the family of the victim, Elena Reyes, their faces etched with a fresh, raw grief that the verdict had done nothing to soothe. On the other, Adrian Vale, a man accused of a brutal murder for $1 million inheritance, sat looking like he'd just been told he'd won the lottery. The stakes couldn't have been higher. It was a battle of life and death, of truth and lies, of a system designed for justice being twisted into a puppet show by a master manipulator. For Elena's family, this was about closure. For Adrian, it was a game. And he was winning. I was the prosecutor, Sarah Jones. For 6 months, this case had been my life. I had held Elena's mother as she cried. I had studied the crime scene photos until they were seared behind my eyelids, and I had looked into Adrian Vale's arrogant eyes and seen the void where his conscience should have been. And then there was him. Adrian Vale, charismatic, wealthy, and utterly ruthless. He was the kind of man who was used to buying his way out of problems. His lawyer, the infamous Maxwell Croft, was a shark in a $5,000 suit, a man who specialized in creating reasonable doubt where there was none, in twisting facts until they snapped. But the person everyone watched most closely was the key witness, Mr. Alistair Finch, Elena's elderly neighbor, a man of impeccable reputation whose simple, heartfelt testimony about seeing Adrian's car that night had felt like the final nail in the coffin, or so we thought. Hidden truth and mystery. The case had seemed straightforward. Elena Reyes, a vibrant young artist, was found in her studio. A robbery gone wrong. It was staged to look like. But the only thing stolen was a priceless sketchbook, and the only person who stood to gain was her cousin, Adrian, the sole beneficiary of her will. We had motive, we had opportunity, and we had an eyewitness, but from the very beginning, something felt off. The evidence was too clean. The lack of forensic traces felt too convenient. Adrian's alibi, though flimsy, was just robust enough to create a shadow of a doubt. It was as if the real culprit was always one step ahead, anticipating our every move. The hidden truth was a ghost in the machine of the trial. We all felt its presence, but no one could see its face. Cross-examination scenes. The climax of the trial was my cross-examination of Adrian. Maxwell Croft had done a brilliant job painting him as a grieving, wrongfully accused relative. It was my turn to dismantle the facade. I approached the stand, my heels clicking on the polished floor. The entire room leaned in. "Mr. Vale," I began, my voice calm, "you stated you were at the Grand Lux Hotel's business center, sending emails at the time of the murder." "I did," he replied, smooth as silk, "and the hotel's system log, which we obtained, shows activity from your registered room key card at that terminal at exactly 10:17 p.m. A fact I have never disputed, Ms. Jones." He gave the jury a slight, patient smile. I paused, letting the silence build. "The business center is on the second floor. The security camera at its entrance was, unfortunately, malfunctioning that night." "A tragic coincidence," Adrian said, almost sighing with feigned regret. "But the camera at the main lobby entrance," I continued, "was working perfectly." I turned to the screen. "We have footage from 9:55 p.m. to 10:40 p.m. We see people coming, going, delivery guys, couples, business people." I clicked the remote. The video played on the large screen. "But we never see you, Mr. Vale, not entering, not leaving." The smirk on his face faltered for a microsecond. "The jury noticed. The service entrance," he recovered quickly. "I used the service entrance near the parking garage. It's faster." "A service entrance," I repeated slowly, "which also has a camera we checked. You don't appear on that one either." The air left the room. Adrian's eyes flickered towards his lawyer. Maxwell Croft was on his feet. "Objection. This is badgering the witness." "Withdrawn," I said softly, not breaking eye contact with Adrian. I had him on the ropes. "So, you were in the business center, but no functioning camera saw you enter or leave." "You were, for all intents and purposes, a ghost." I took a step closer. "Isn't it true, Mr. Vale, that you were at the hotel?" That you went to the business center, swiped your card to create a digital alibi, and then immediately left through a blind spot, a fire exit, to go to your cousin's apartment just 10 minutes away? He froze, his jaw tightened. The confident veneer was cracking. That is a lie. Where were you really that night, Adrian? I pressed, my voice dropping to a whisper that carried to the back of the room. Everyone waited. Even the judge leaned forward, his stern face a mask of intense concentration. Adrian's eyes darted around, looking for an escape that wasn't there. I was at the hotel. The lie hung in the air, brittle and transparent. The tension was a physical thing, a wire pulled taut, ready to snap. I had created the doubt, but I had no proof to break him. Not yet. It was after the guilty verdict, after his chilling smile, that the real twist began to unfold. The court was in an uproar. Elena's family was weeping with a confused, hollow relief. Reporters were scrambling for the doors. Adrian was being led away, the smirk back on his face, a picture of a man who knew a secret no one else did. That's when old Mr. Alistair Finch, the eyewitness, approached me. His hands were trembling and his face was pale with an anguish I hadn't seen before. "Miss Jones," he whispered, his voice cracking. I have to tell you something. I couldn't live with it." My heart hammered against my ribs. "What is it, Mr. Finch?" "The car," he said, tears welling in his eyes. I did see his car.
A black sedan, but...
It wasn't that night. The world slowed down. What do you mean? It was the night before the murder. I'm old, my memory. It plays tricks. I got the days mixed up. But when I saw the photo the police showed me, I was so sure. And then, when I testified, I saw the look in that young man's eyes, and I thought it was defiance. But now, after that smile, he broke down, sobbing. I've sent an innocent man to prison. The ground fell away from beneath me. The ironclad eyewitness testimony, the cornerstone of our case, was a catastrophic mistake. Adrian Vale, the man I believed was a monster, was innocent. His smile wasn't one of victory. It was the hysterical, despairing grin of a man who knew the truth was now forever buried under the weight of a legal mistake. He wasn't smirking because he had fooled the judge. He was smiling because the system, the very thing designed to find truth, had failed him so spectacularly that it was laughable. In the crushing silence of that revelation, a new, more terrible truth dawned. If Adrian didn't do it, then who did? The real killer was still out there. They had not just taken Elena's life. They had manipulated the investigation, perhaps even influencing the confused testimony of an old man, and had let an innocent man take the fall. The message was clear and devastating. The justice system is a fragile human construct. It can be broken not just by lies, but by simple, honest mistakes. And sometimes the greatest crime isn't the one that is punished, but the truth that is forever lost in the process. An innocent man was going to prison for life. A family's grief was now poisoned by doubt, and a murderer was free, watching their perfect crime unfold. My colleague found me minutes later, staring blankly at the now empty defendant's table. "Sarah, what's wrong?" "We won." I looked at him, the words sticking in my throat. How could I explain that our victory was the greatest defeat of all? I picked up my briefcase, my hands trembling. The echo of the judge's gavel seemed to still be ringing in my ears, but now it sounded like a death knell for truth itself. I walked out of the courtroom, the weight of the unsolved mystery settling on my shoulders like a shroud. The case was closed. The file was sealed. But as I stepped out into the fading evening light, one thought echoed in my mind, a whisper that would haunt me for the rest of my days. The real killer was still out there, and they had just gotten away with